Welcome to the 2020 Summer Series. I'm Jack Fallon from Team 5199, the Robot Dolphins from outer space, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. Today, on day 3 of the Summer Series, we will be discussing mentoring and the different strategies mentors can use to make a competitive team. Also note, you do not have to be mentored to learn from today's workshop. There will be tons of strategies that a team as a whole can use to improve. We are welcomed by panelists from Team 3309, the Friarbots, Team 3476, Code Orange, and Team 5199, the Robot Dolphins from outer space. All panelists today were selected as top mentors as Woodie Flowers finalists, so we should be in good company today. Panelists, would you care to introduce yourselves?
Go ahead, guys.
Sure. I'm Evan Smith from Team 3309 Friarbots. I'm an engineer at Boeing for 32 years. I do airplane modifications there. I was introduced to the team in 2012 by our founding father, Dr. Carr. And at that time, both my sons were going to the school. So I thought it was a good idea to spend more time with them. So that's kind of how I got started. Won the Woodie Flowers Award in 2015 at the Los Angeles Regional. And that's about it for an intro.
I guess I can go. My name is Rick Jung. I'm on 5199. I have a degree in industrial design. I'm not an engineer. It's a related field. I'm also owner of a product design office consultancy. I've been on the team since 2016 and became lead mentor, I guess, in 2018 until present. I also have been racing cars for a long time. That helps bring some of that experience to the table too. Let Saikiran go.
My name is Saikiran Ramanan, and I'm a mentor on 3476 Code Orange. I started off as a student on Team 696 of Circuit Breakers from 2011 to 2014. And when I went to UCI, I started mentoring Code Orange from the 2015 season to present. I mentor in a wide variety of spaces, but I'm currently an engineer at Northrop Grumman, and I do electrical engineering there.
Thank you. Also note, please drop questions in the chat. We will be addressing all of them. So if you have any questions for the mentors, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Right now, we're going to go with some prepared questions. So the first question for today is, what is the biggest thing rookie teams can do to become more competitive?
Well, I can speak about not necessarily rookie teams, but kind of the two major things we look at in the beginning or before even the season, just from a philosophy point of view. So we look at FRC. We look at the C in FRC, which is competition. So we try not to get trapped into thinking this is a science project or an engineering competition. It's really the sporting activity. So we try to focus on the ranking points. The second thing we do, which has to do with, it takes a lot of commitment to be on a team. We ask the team in the very beginning of the season, do we want to be competitive? And usually the answer is yes. And then that goes along with knowing it's going to take a lot more work. If you want to try to play at the top, it means you got to put as much work in as the top teams. So it usually comes through during the season when we start getting bogged down to remember that. But go ahead, guys.
Okay, I'll go next. Well, I would say that engaging a team that's in your community that can mentor you, and you can learn a ton of stuff and skip through a lot of the pitfalls by connecting with a team in your area, maybe 2 or 3 teams even, so you get a different idea of how teams are run and what they focus on.
Actually, to piggyback off of what Evan said, I think that's the most important part, right? Not being too involved in your ideas, kind of, but try to look at what's in the community, especially as a rookie team or as a newer team. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You don't have to do everything yourself. You should, reach out to other teams in your area that might be able to help you. Look at Chief Delphi. Look at the very basic designs, like every bot out there. or the minimum competitive concepts put up by different organizations, and like take inspiration if you're a rookie, right? This is the year for you to learn and to try to figure out what's going on before you can make like a amazing ultra competitive robot. And doing that kind of stuff doesn't preclude being really competitive either, right? I think in North Carolina, like the one regional that went, the first seeded robot was an EveryBot, and they won the event with an EveryBot. So it's a very legitimate and valid strategy as well. So that's what I'd recommend, kind of approaching it with an open mind.
Thank you. We already have some questions popping up in the chat. Rick, we'll get to you after Ali, but we have a question from Ali. I mentor, get my freshmen and new members excited about the program.
Guys.
So I can take that as well, going back to back. I think that we all know that robotics meetings are fun, but where we all get really into it is the competition. That's what really gets us all excited. And I remember as a freshman, right, going to meetings was fun, but I think it was either a regional or fall classic back in 2011. That's when everything kind of like clicked for me, right? That's when you saw like, oh, it was just more about our robot. It's about the entire community. So I would recommend, I mean, it's hard to do competitions right now, but when hopefully things open up again, that's what we find works, getting people excited for competitions.
Yeah, when we start at this time of year, we really start pushing our new members and especially the families to get ready to go to off-season competitions, because typically what happens is you build season, and the first time the families go to see what's actually happening is after the build season, and then it goes, oh, no wonder you guys are working so hard. So it helps get everyone to buy in and get to a off-season competition early.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. The off seasons are key to building that excitement and seeing the grandness of the event, and the students get real excited about that. So they get enthusiastic about continuing on, and that's it.
I'd like to hear more about your guys' team here, the background before we get too far into it, so people know, we've been playing you guys for a long time. So Code Orange helped us out when we first started too. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about your competition record and how far have you gone?
3309, you're the oldest one here. Do you want to start off with it?
Sure. This is our 11th year, and we have about 9 blue banners now. We won 4 regionals, and for the last 5 years, we've won the Chairman's Award. And we made it to World Championships the last 6 years, and various other awards, quality, engineering excellence, innovation and control. I think we've been very fortunate to have strong students and strong mentors to carry us through. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens through the rest of this year and into next year as to the way things are going to go. But so far, we've been pretty successful.
I can go next. So we're a year younger than 3309. We've been around for 10 years right now. And I think we only have 3 regional wins in our 10 years in this area. We're actually not too good on a regional level. But I think where we really shine is going to champs in our iteration process. And we have 4 division wins over the last 10 years. So I guess that's our record right there.
That's fantastic. I think we're better at we're just getting good at the regional level, I think. So probably since I started 2016, we made a regional final every year to present, and we got lucky to play this year, so we made the finals at Del Mar. We kind of were jinxed. We made 7 finals, and we never were able to. In fact, we were playing you guys, Evan, at LA, and we thought, how are we going to be jinxed? We were ranked number 1, and we picked BeachBots, and we go, how is this going to go wrong? So the first match, BeachBots dies. When do they ever do that? Right off the platform. So we actually, to make it, Evan can remember this, we went a 5-game final to win LA. I've never seen that.
I'm trying to forget that.
Hey, I mean,
you guys have
knocked us out in semis, so that was definitely fun to see.
So I should really say last year, 2019, the game, we got lucky. The game really came to us. Like I said, our software, our programming is a little bit I wouldn't say weak, but we don't have the depth. So they didn't have Auton. So that really evened the field for us. We had the Sandstorm. So we're ranked number one at 2 regionals, Ventura and LA, got 2 banners there. And then when we got to Worlds, very surprisingly, we were ranked second in our division behind 254 and ahead of Blackhawks. But we can talk about that later. It's not because we have a good bot. I think it's some of the things we do and how we play and some of our strategy. But yeah, we're very fortunate last year. I don't think we'll ever have a season, like that again.
Wow, that's definitely in good hands today. We have very accomplished mentors today. So we have Rick Uval. We have another question. How do you attract other people to start mentoring your team?
As a mentor, I mean, I just ask, as many associates and friends that I have. I mean, you guys know, like Miles and Stu and things like that. So people that are in STEM or in tech or engineering. What we want to do is more like 3309 and Code Orange is get some of the younger alumni mentors. That's where the real life of the team needs to be. Us old guys can't. Evan can speak to this. We need that younger blood, right? That we can't be there every single day.
Yeah, it gets challenging. I would say alumni mentors are the key, and they bring in a younger perspective. They bring in a more intense knowledge of the game, have them having gone through it as students, and they're able to talk to the students at their level and contribute and understand their perspective, and also bring in details or ideas from other teams and the world community to integrate into their decisions without driving the team.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I was going to talk about. That's one area we need to improve is networking with other teams like yourself, and keeping that community open. I think having the young mentors help that. We have 3 or 4 returning alumni, which really help. They have some connection that way. But like during the season, you guys are very quick to pick up, like on, maybe you guys can start with the West Coast intake wheels last year on the hatch intake. That's something we need to kind of implement a little more. One thing that we do a lot of, and I think can help a lot of other teams too, we do a ton of iterations. So I think on our hatch intake last year, we probably on our 8th generation by the time, the off season came around on that. So I think that's something to help rookie teams or other teams. Don't get married to your first idea. Just keep improving it, as you go along.
For us, in terms of mentor recruitment, we've had a lot. Sorry, there's an airplane above me. If it gets too loud, let me know. But we've had a lot of mentors come from UCI. So I went to UCI myself, and that's how I started mentoring the team. And I definitely echo what they both said about having alumni mentors. They've been the lifeblood of our team so far. And even a lot of our older mentors are alumni from the program from like 2002, 2003. And having an alumni perspective is incredibly important, we find, because it just changes how mentors interact with students completely. So we've done posts on Chief Delphi. We've had our friends from college come in. We've just reached out to different people we know, and we've gotten mentors from everywhere. So I think a good example is 294 though. 294 draws a lot of mentors from Northrop Grumman specifically. So if there's an engineering company in your area that you might have one connection to, a lot of engineers are willing to spend maybe an hour or 2 a week, helping high school kids, right? That's very attractive to people because they want to impart knowledge to people today. But that's how you draw them in, right? Have a very small time commitment at the beginning and then bring them in.
Yeah, and it's fun hanging out with all your friends, right? All the mentors.
Oh yeah, and free food.
Okay, going back to the records, obviously all of your teams have accrued very good records. What do you attribute to the team that has contributed to this success? You can take it from a general standpoint, or you can highlight a few more specific details.
I can go, I guess, for us. So like I mentioned a couple of times, we don't build the best robot. we're probably a top 10 robot in anything. We just don't have the experience or the depth. Again, my field's industrial design. So one thing we do uniquely is we focus on the user. So one thing we do probably have one of the best is if you look at our control panel. Our control panel is one of the most simplified and easy to use, ease of use control panels. Like last year for the rocket, we had big diagrams of the rocket for the hatch and the fuel, and with big arcade buttons. So you don't see our drivers. It's make too many mistakes on that. I know when you use like a Logitech joystick, you got those little buttons on there. You see drivers doing things or going to the wrong thing. That's what we try to avoid. Another thing we do, since we can't compete with like a accurate shooter as much, we're doing pretty good on that, but we can't compete at the top of that. So we focus on some of the other points of the game where you get a ranking point like the climb. So we've been one of the top climbers, I'd say, since 2016. And going back to Worlds, we were surprised last year at Worlds, we were the best climber in our division. And we actually looked at the points. We were the best climber at Houston. Was our climber great? It was actually pretty slow. It barely put the robot on, but it was just ease of use. And another thing with climbers like this year, one thing that we do is we get a really wide range of engagement for the user, for the driver. So you see a lot of robots, they'll go up and their hook has about a 3-inch range. If be right under it and grab it. We shoot for like 2 feet of engagement. So the driver can be coming in at an angle 2 feet out. And that's not necessarily how great your climber is, but it's just something you want to build in, take into account for human error. I think that's part of, I think that's where our strength is, kind of more of a user-centric approach.
I can say on the Friarbots over the past few years, we've been able to make robots that can do most of the functions fairly well. And it does give you a lot of advantage when you're going into strategies. You have a lot of flexibilities in the strategies that you can employ. And also, you're not as much reliant on the alliance partners, and you're allowed to give the alliance partners different functions because you can do all the different functions in there. And sometimes some of the teams come in, they can only do one thing. So you're able to allow them to do that one thing, and they get a lot of reward out of that, as well as the team or the alliance wins the match. So we try to at least have the robot that can do as much as possible. And I know that's not something that we would recommend for rookie or new teams, but it's something that we're capable of doing, and our students are able to make happen.
I'm actually going to say the exact opposite of what Evan just said. I think our most successful years are when we did one thing incredibly well and everything else okay. I think a good example of this was 2015 for us, when we could only stack from the human player station. We couldn't deal with cans from the center. We couldn't deal with the landfill, but we just stacked really well, and that worked out well for us. I think for higher levels of play, it's important to be bulletproof. It's important to be your robot shouldn't ever break. It's important for your drivers to have incredibly fine-tuned muscle memory. So that's a lot of practice. And it's important that you're able to maximize what you can do on your alliance. So we all find success in our different places, but for us, I think the years that we tried to do everything were the years where we failed. The years where we picked 1 or 2 things to do really well is the ones where we excelled a lot.
We have another question here. How can teams use the off prepare new standard for the following build season?
You froze on my computer, Jack. She asked about what teams can do in the off season to get.
Yeah, how can they use it to prepare students for the build season? Different off season events or workshops, or what can they do from a mentoring standpoint?
I'll go. We don't have, because you guys probably have a much more formal program. What we've been focusing on, we didn't do it the first couple years, especially for new teams. Off-season events are incredibly critical, and they're really inexpensive. They're anywhere from $200 to $400 compared to 10 times that for, let's see. So we do as many off-season events as we can. It's not that, because it takes some commitment. It's really hard to do an event and do one the next week. But I think we did 7 events last year, including season and world. So it was grueling near the end, but you could see how much better the team gets. So I think by the end, we did Battle of the Border. I think we went undefeated all the way through, Jack maybe remembers, through qualifications and through playoffs. So that it really helps. And we learned a lot that way about maintenance on your robot, refreshing it and things like we didn't know before because we never played that much with the bot. So I think getting to do as many off-season events as you can.
Yeah, off-season is a very, very busy time for the Friarbots. We co-host one a Beach Blitz and also host the Battleship Blast. So a lot of stuff going on, and we try to use those off-seasons to encourage new drive teams, practice new drive teams, to get new people in the pits, to get familiar with how to work around the robot and where things are in the pit. And the rest of the off season, we try to do the training, make sure that the newer students are getting trained on the equipment and on the skills, so that they're ready to go when the season starts.
I'll echo what Rick and Evan said about off-season events. They're incredibly important. But for us, I guess I can focus on 2 specific areas. So for our CAD kids, right, we have all our new or interested CAD kids, right? They might not have done CAD last year. They might have done media or programming, and we have them all do the Symbiotics tutorial series. And then after that, we partition little parts of the robot or different projects for them to try to take on. So that's kind of how we train our CAD kids during the off season. And for programming, if we have a completely new programmer, sometimes we actually have them recode the robot from last year from scratch. And that's a good way that we find that they're able to learn the skills because they have a good reference for them to look at because the robot code is already done. But it also allows them to run their code at off-season events. So it's a win-win in terms of motivation for doing something as well as having enough resources to help them get there.
Saikiran, how many people do you have on CAD in the off-season?
I don't have a good number for that. I think it varies a lot. It varies a lot from people who are kind of working on stuff and people who are going really hard on working on stuff. So right now we have, I think, 4 kids doing a lot of CAD, but I know we have a bunch of kids tangentially looking into it. In the previous off season, we had maybe 10 or 12 kids who do the tutorial series or up to 15. So it really depends on student interest.
So this may be a discussion for later on, but it's just kind of varying. So I know you guys are more of a community team. Friarbots is a private school team. We're not really we're a public school team, but a public school district team. So we're a little bit larger. We can draw from 9 high schools, but we have to have a class. So we actually have a class that I teach. I'm in the process of becoming a teacher, which is very grueling. But so we actually have lessons. We'll do CAD. We'll try to do mechanisms that we don't know about and build in the shop and things like that. But we could always increase our depth and our, especially we need to recruit, I think, more across our district too.
We usually have 4 or 5 students that are heavily into CAD, and there's probably 6 or 7 other students that are helping and learning while they go, feeding individual components to help build the assembly. So that's kind of how we go.
I see all the questions in the chat. We'll start addressing them slowly but surely. Feel free to keep dropping more questions too. We'll make sure to get through all of them by the end of the live stream. So we have a question, another question from Ali. Has COVID changed your approach to mentoring, and if so, how?
Well, that's a big one.
Well, we're sitting on a couch on Zoom meeting.
Yeah, virtual mentoring is one, it's not very much fun, and 2, it's I say it's very time consuming, and trying to do everything on the Zoom meetings. It's really hard to engage the students in activities over the phone. It's hard to get them excited about, how do you get them excited about learning how to weld or something like that when all you can do is show them pictures and things like that. So we've been having meetings three times a week, some updates, and working on some CAD skills, and work on some small CAD projects, and introducing some new technologies to the team. They're playing around with Swerve Drive just to play around with it, and we'll see where we go. We're doing some, instead of fabricating parts, we're having them 3D print parts so that they can have it in their hands and have that tactile feedback and experience trying to put things together. So that's kind of all we're doing right now. And every time we come up with a plan on how to get together, the environment changes, and we have to change our plans. So it's been kind of a long path to try to find a way forward.
So for us, it's been, I think for everyone it's been going a little slow. But what we're trying to do is focus on things we haven't had really the opportunity to do in the past. So we're notoriously bad at documentation, right? So what we're trying to do is encourage our kids to document our processes and make videos about what we do. So we think that's going to be helpful for other teams, but also be helpful for us a year down the line, right? When our seniors graduate and kids are like, oh shoot, what happened on the shooter last year? Or how does kickoff work for us? But we're also trying to, I think Evan's point about the 3D printers is important. We ordered a couple of printers and sent them directly to kids who are working on projects. And we're hoping that's going to be a good way for them to, get the tactile feedback, like Evan is saying, and keep them on task and forward on their projects. And we're trying to do the same with smaller electrical projects. We're trying to also build a Swerve drive base to give to a programmer and make it so they can fit it in their house. So it's a different sort of problem set that we're trying to deal with. But it's very hard for us to adapt. I don't envy any full-time teachers right now who are trying to figure out lesson plans for fall.
Yeah, what we did up until now, actually in class, since with robotics stopping, we actually designed, I think you guys saw a bunch of COVID type projects, different manipulator keys and UV light sources and barriers, but allowed people to use their engineering. And again, we did a bunch of people printed 3D. We have 3 machines that we're kind of rotating around. But I think now once we get past this and a little more into summer, we are going to get more into training everyone more on SolidWorks and start doing some actual robot mechanisms. And also I'm going to start talking about, I know there's been some push to talk about improvements for our robot, or this is something you guys can probably speak to too. Do you build another, I guess it depends on access to a shop. Are you planning on building a whole new robot right away? Or are you going to wait till see what the rules are? Or are you going to try and improve? You haven't played with what you have, right? So, so we have kind of a 2-prong. We're going to try and improve what we have. We had some issues with it last time, and there's also talk about building a whole new robot. So I'm not sure. What are you guys' plans for that?
We're not sure yet. We're going to dabble with the Swerve Drive for a bit. If that turns out positive, that might be something we adapt into the current robot. We're looking at different improvements for the current robot as well. It'll just depend. It's going to be a challenge trying to avoid starving the students, especially the seniors, from their last year of being able to prototype and do those kind of things that they're used to doing. And so we might just go back and do some of that just to make sure that everybody gets a taste of that for the year, and we don't take that away from anybody just because of we already have a robot that works.
Our current plan is to iterate on everything we have right now, just make everything we have better. So that's probably going to involve a lot of redesigning stuff, but same concept with Swerve.
Thank you, Ali Ahmed. Hopefully that answers your question. Stephen, hopefully that answers your second question. So, but as for your first question, we'll ask the panel. Stephen's question is, what has worked best for targeting the robot being done before end of the build? Do you do it before the bag? Do you do it before champs? Other?
I can start with this one. We are notoriously bad for finishing a robot right before our first event, which leads us to being incredibly bad at our first event. And I think it depends on what you're trying to go for. Sometimes for us, it's something we struggle with, but we have like a very unique, I guess, design process in terms of like we start CAD a little later after, a lot of prototypes are done. But I think we have a hard time like boxing ourselves into a corner, right? We don't want to like commit on like a drive base until we know that everything's going to fit on the drive base, or we don't want to commit to like a certain type of like shooter geometry until we know that like, oh, we can feed the shooter geometry. I think part of that is just kind of going back for part of what we did in the 2020 season is simplify everything a lot. So 2019, we like had a crazy robot that had like, 8 degrees of freedom and stuff, and that really hindered our season progress. So 2020, we decided to step back and say, hey, we think we can do some more complicated stuff, but we're not, so we can try to finish the robot earlier. And just being mindful of knowing your limits and knowing your limits is can help with the build season schedule problems.
The Saikiran, that's funny. That's not funny, but that's how we see you guys. We thought it was by plan that you start out, with a plan to get really strong, by Worlds. So we always thought you guys spend more time up front so you can have a better bot, near the end. We kind of do it both ways. On one hand, because we weren't as advanced as you guys have as part of our strategy, we try to work. We feel like we have to work harder than a lot of teams. Again, I don't know how you guys' work schedule is. We worked every day through probably the first or the second event with no days off. But we try to be strong for that first event because we know the good teams may be still developing to get that shot at Worlds. That used to be our philosophy. So we sign up for a week 1 or week 2 event strategically, so we can get that first one, then hope to improve and be competitive by the last event, a late event in the season 2, so we can be competitive there. But this year we did much more prototyping and development. And this is more to talk to rookie teams or newer teams how to get better. So I think by the traditional bag day, we posted a joke. We had 4 frame tubes done in our say, yay, bag day. That's what we posted on our social media. We had nothing of the real robot done. So we spent many weeks this year working on wooden prototypes. I think that's important for newer teams. I think for our hopper, we went from something like a 6-second cycle time down to 1.8 seconds to reliably empty the hopper. And that was strictly through just tons and tons of wood prototypes and tons of iteration on that. So yeah, I think without the bag day this year, you can work a little longer. But again, I said I came from racing. I know you could have the best race car in the world if you haven't tested it and set it up before your event or adequate time to do that. It's not worth anything. A mediocre machine can beat you if you haven't had the time to stop it and get to a certain finish point before your first competition, and really go through it and make some revisions on it and refinements.
Yeah, this has been a real challenge for us the last few years in getting things ready in time for the first competition. This year we were actually behind in even finishing the second robot, so we were having to share the practice bot with the programmers and the builders at the same time. So it was a lot of late hours and splitting the days. And as far as trying to meet a bag day, it's really kind of a trade-off as to what kind of value you're going to get out of the risk that you're taking to take more time. So we sit back and try to evaluate that. Let's see, this year we were able to get the drivetrain and chassis done pretty early, and then the rest of it was developing components. We tried to focus on one of the primary components, the shooter, to get that tuned up and working well. And while we were trying to get the intake working well, and that kind of thing. So.
Jack, I don't know if you are going to speak to it, but I'd like to hear what these guys, teams do, how to maximize your competitiveness at an event. What's your event protocol?
So I personally believe that one of the most important things you can do at an event is scouting. I think that drive team wins matches, pit crew makes sure your robot can makes it to a match, but scouting is what wins events. And I think having a very robust scouting program leads to teams winning events consistently. I think Citrus Circuits is a very good example of that. Right? They have amazing robots, but by far. But they're so dominant because they pick the best robots and they know how to make their alliance work together. So I think that figuring out what's important early on, how to collect data early on, how to have a culture of good scouting on your team to make sure your data is good and your kids are happy and invested in the success of your program is incredibly important for being competitive at an event. And I know for us, for a fact, because we've managed to eke out a better pick than another alliance, we've won events. So that's something I'm very, I think is very underrated compared to a lot of other stuff, and is incredibly important.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing as Saikiran. Scouting, I think, is number one. Even pit scouting, a lot of teams will say a lot of things about their robot that you find out later are not exactly true, maybe a bit exaggerated. And then also, when you're going up for a match, to know from the scouting team whether the alliance partners, what their capabilities are, and also what your opponent's capabilities are, and how consistent they are, will drive what your strategy is for each of those matches, as well as give you an advantage for alliance selection. So I think that's, if it were one component, that's probably the most significant factor.
So one thing that we do, it's kind of the same approach. We try to maximize our ranking points so we can use our scouting to pick the best bot, to pick a bot better than us. So many times we find out we have a higher ranking than a lot of the other good bots. So we focus on that. So that goes a lot with our strategists. But so a couple of things we ask, and it's just more of a thought process again, like our team, before we even start, we ask, how many ranking points can we give up? And our answer, so everyone's score is 0. What happens in typically your first one, you use that kind of as a practice thing. So we realized as we went along later season, when we didn't make as many mistakes, we'd go ranked from 30th to number 1. It's the same bot, right? So it's a huge difference in discipline for your drive team in the beginning. So one thing we focus at events is our drive team along with the robot. So one thing I see that we kind of focus on, every member of your drive team is pretty important. A lot of teams will stick someone they want to participate in the human player. So we try to make our human player the best human player there is, because it's a very critical, important position too. I know you guys do a ton of practice. We try to go. I think I don't know how much we show up at your field compared to other teams. We try to get there as much as we can.
I think it's as much as ours now.
So as far as competitiveness at an event, what you can do, I know one thing, our drive, we have a really good drive coach now. We finally have, like you are, Saikiran, a mentor, alumni mentor in there who knows the game quicker than feet. One thing we focus on is the end game, because it's the easiest ranking point usually. So we try to get that climb. One thing that makes us happy, if our bot's hanging there with everyone else and there's still 10 seconds left in the match, that makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we didn't risk that, trying to fill that rocket or something at the end and not get that second ranking point. So we kind of really focus on the ranking points. And just like you said before, robot preparedness, definitely newer teams, you got to have a checklist to go through your bot every time. I don't know how many times we've gone out there, and something that we're not compressed or the battery's not zip tied. So we found checklists and a backup person for that. Really helps with that. Another thing is just that the team practice what we do. A lot of times they will be asked, when's the team dinner tonight? So our answer, Jack will know, our team dinner, when is it? We always say, well, when does pits close? It's 15 minutes after that. We know we're going to stay there and do everything we can to work on the bot the time that we have. Same goes during matches. Not everyone goes to lunch until, some people can, but if something needs to be fixed, we try to fix that first before we take any breaks. Other match strategy we have is in the evenings when we're at away matches, we meet in the evenings when we do match vids. It's just part of the process. We really try to take this as a sport. There's a lot of, you let down your guard, once you go to the fun events, but you really have to, if you want to be competitive, you really have to keep those game practices up.
Actually, to kind of add on to this, there's something I just thought of that Evan was, we had the opportunity to have Evan a part of this. 2018 Orange County Regional, 3309 and us were, it was a great event. We were first seed, or first alliance, right? And we're, making our way up. And in finals, both of our robots kind of just died in our own different ways. And from that point, I think we learned a lot about how we need to deal with failure as a team. So what we started doing, right, is we started making sure pit crew members were at our drive team practices. So as soon as our robot died, it wasn't drive team that was fixing it, it was pit crew. And that made our pit better at fixing problems that happened at an event, right? They were able to say like, okay, we've seen this before like 10 times. We know how to fix it now. But additional to, onto that, right? Part of the reason why so in 2018 at that event, our arm gearbox just completely fell apart. Yep. The rest of our robot was working. So what we started doing, right, was practicing a lot of failure mode operation. So it's like, okay, if this motor comes unplugged, what do we do, right? If you don't have vision, how do you play the game? If your intake is broken, what do you do? And I think that really contributes a lot to your drive team being comfortable with new scenarios happening on the field and for them not to panic and freak out and to be able to adapt quickly on the fly. And I think that's very important for, being competitive on the field and, making sure everyone feels good and is doing, their best at the competition.
Yeah, that was an amazing final. We weren't even there. We went to go watch you guys in the finals. And did someone's buddy climb get deployed during that match at the end too? Or I don't know who that was. Sorry, I wasn't sure.
Yeah. We drug it around the field for a little bit.
Everything that went wrong that match went wrong. Yeah. And we just had to get better at making sure things didn't go wrong. And if things go wrong, as they always do, how do we recoup from failed modes?
Yeah, our arm fell out at Worlds last year. Fell out of the elevator.
We're going to take the next few minutes to kind of wrap up. We're going to go a little bit over, but that's all right because it's the last workshop of the day. We have a question from Teddy from our own team. By the way, this is the last time to kind of drop in any last questions, so feel free. Teddy commented, when your team had a big leap in success, what were the largest contributing factors?
Want to repeat that again?
When your team had a big leap in success, what were some big contributing factors?
So our leap happened before I joined the team. I think this was between 2011 and 2012. So 2012 was the first time Code Orange won an event, and that was Code Orange's second year. And then 2013, Code Orange won a division as a third-year team, which was like no one knew who what the team was. But what changed, right, was we had alumni mentor come into the team. His name is Andrew Hedge. He's also Woodie Flowers winner. But he was an alumni from 980, he mentored 968, and he was able to come to the team, show what could be done better, and inspire the kids to do better. So that's when our leap kind of happened.
Yeah, I think ours was, we had some of the alumni mentors came back and were able to help and strengthen the team and grow the team skills as well. So I think that was a big influence in 2015 or 16 timeframe.
Yeah, I think hopefully we're seeing that same trend. I think 2018, by the end of the season there, we were up near the top regionally. And I think that had to do with our alumni mentors coming back. In 2019, we had more coming back, but we need more from outside sources. But one thing that helped us out was we had I think this is good for rookie teams to hear. We had a water jet vendor that was really helping us out since 2016. So we were able to do a lot of parts quickly, but we really didn't want to push them too much by, saying, here's some parts, here's the same parts the next day with some changes. So I think it was, I don't know when we got our router. Was it 2018? Yeah. So last year, 2019, we were able to iterate parts. That's one thing that if rookie teams want to know. We got an O'Meal router. It's like $28 to go in. We have that thing running all the time. So we're, constantly generating new parts that night with design. So tons of iterations. So we're able to develop our bot much farther and quicker. So I think that probably the CNC router really helped us out, one of the most.
And then the last thing, any last tips for mentors or any other things that you'd like to cover as kind of a last note?
I can go. So number one, have fun. It's important for everyone to have fun, for mentors especially. I think I'm going to speak to two things kind of as an alumni mentor to other alumni who are looking to start mentoring teams. So college is the time where you're supposed to learn and have fun. So don't focus on FRC. Go do college things and have a lot of fun. But if you do, two things. One, I would not recommend you mentor your own team, and that's because of the second point, where as a mentor, you're not done learning. You're there helping students, but I've learned so much as a mentor, more than I learned when being a student. And I think it's very important for alumni mentors, especially, to go in, learn as much as they can. And if they want to help out their original team eventually, I think it's a better idea for them to go out, learn from other places, other sources, and then take new information back to the original team to make it better. So that's something I definitely recommend for any alumni mentors. If anyone has any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, I would say for new teams or newer teams that just focus on having fun that first year and don't try to be so competitive. I want to try to make sure that all the students are engaged and they're having fun, because if they're not having fun, they might not come back. So that's kind of the emphasis. Search for opportunities for the students to explore things that they're really interested in first, and then start pushing them to do things that they're maybe not as comfortable with, and then also encourage them to try everything. I don't know how many times we found out that a student has a passion for welding, and at the beginning of the season or the first year they came in, they were deathly afraid of it because of sparks and whatnot. And now they're like master welders. So it's amazing how much the students will knowledge they'll gain, and they overcome it really quick on just trying different things.
I'd say to help any team at any level, really look at what your realistic capabilities are, and then build to that strength. Like Saikiran said, you can come up with some mechanism, one thing you can do really well if you're a beginning team. Don't try to do it all. And just work on your reliability and consistency. And, I think any team can do well with that. And just keep reaching out to mentors. I mean, there's a lot of them out there. I found at least dads and things like Evan and I came from the same place. Or my kid was in it. But they're out there. They'd be willing to help, but they just need to be a little bit of coaxing.
Alrighty, thank you, panelists. We will have to wrap up today's workshop. Special thanks to Evan from Team 3309, the Friarbots, Saikiran from Team 3476, Code Orange, and Rick from Team 5199, the Robot Dolphins from Outer Space. Tomorrow, the summer series will continue at 5 Pacific time with a programming workshop. Please check our Instagram at Robot Dolphins for more information and details about the workshop we will be hosting throughout this week. Also, please subscribe for easy access to the stream. This has been Jack Fallon from Team 5199. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Good seeing you.
Thank you, guys. You guys are doing awesome.
Thank you.
See ya.